Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Glad to have you here on a podcast to answer your questions on addiction, recovery, and mental health by Waismann Method Treatment Center and Rapid Detox. My name is Dwight Hurst. I'm clinical mental health counselor and the co-host for the program. Always a joy to be here, not just with you listeners, but with our wonderful group, our wonderful panel that we have always have put together. So I'll go around and see who's here today. First, we're joined by Clare Waismann, a substance use disorder certified counselor, registered addiction specialist. Clare is, of course, the creator and founder of the Domus Retreat and the Waismann Method Detox specialists as well. So Clare, hi, how are you?
How are you? How are you guys?
Good. We've got David Livingston is here in spirit and will join us in actuality in a little bit as we're going through. He is on his way. David is, of course, the clinical lead and therapist for the Waismann programs and Domus Retreat, and is basically a long time and recognized expert in the field of the psychological elements and treatments of addiction. So as always, glad to have David on our team. We're joined by a wonderful guest today who is joining us to talk about her expertise. We're joined by Amity Cooper, who is she's an entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in working in just a variety of businesses, from fashion to gourmet food, manufacturing, and now mental health. And we're talking about the practice of mental health treatment, addiction recovery, and just the knowledge that Amity brings as she works with all kinds of people, basically athletes, professionals, high achievers, and helping to overcome the problems that come up with psychological struggles as well as addiction. So Amity, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
How do I introduce you, Amity? Tell us maybe just a little about yourself and where you come from, and
Sure.
show everyone why we're so thrilled you're here.
We have Dwight and I love that we are speaking again so soon. I was explaining to him earlier that I've been in the business world actually for the last 20 years or so. And as Dwight had said, I had sort of come from a manufacturing and product development world and realized around 2015 that my life of producing products and hoofing my wares and selling and being externally driven wasn't as satisfying as I was looking to make that. And so I decided to do a huge shift, and I turned my attention to getting a second degree in mental health counseling. And I've been an active practitioner and coach for the last 6 years or so. And I love working with individuals who are just trying to live their best lives. And so it's been a great industry to be in. And I'm just really excited to talk about all of these new advancements that are coming online for our industry at large.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things we're really excited to hear about and talk about. Amity and I discovered right before this that we had talked 3 days ago or something like that for a different podcast application. And so that made me extra excited when I said, Amity's I don't see that name very often. And then I compared last names, and then I was like, hang on, I know her. And one of the things that makes me extra excited is I know what an expert you are and the expertise that you're focusing on, the development, particularly of the way that like tech and digital presence can have in treatment, and different ways that there are these more innovative practices. And that's probably a good start for our discussion. Is the question, we run by questions here. We answer, and so the first question would be, how do we integrate new practices, tech, VR, all kinds of things like that to enhance mental health treatment and people's recovery?
Yeah. So one of the things as I was preparing for this conversation is like, I myself was becoming overwhelmed and inundated with information. Okay. And so imagine for somebody that has that continues to work and explore and be an active user in this field of exploring technologies. Imagine what it's like for our clients and everyday consumers who are sort of inundated with options of how we can access these various tools that are coming online today. And so the mental health industry at large is really going through a radical transformation. There's a rapid advancement of exponential technologies that have been occurring for the last 15 years or so. And just now, probably propelled by the pandemic experience, we are suddenly sort of inundated with all of these options and all of these tools. And so there is a plethora of options available to us, both as clinicians and end users and clients and customers, however you want to classify us. And it's crucial. We have the ability to actually provide the resources and the care in ways that we never thought were imaginable before. And we can do that through a variety of ways with the use of AI development, VR immersive environments and technologies, plus all of this everyday access to wearable technologies. So I love to use this as sort of like a jumping off platform to go deeper into how these technologies can be applied to our practices and just everyday use.
It's wonderful. I'm going to let David in real quick. David is joining us now, jumping in. David, welcome. You are sideways, by the way.
I am sideways. How do I correct that? Is that better?
Oh,
there you go. You did it. No, I was on
you right now.
I was sideways on a call earlier today, and boy, we took forever to figure it out. So look at that. Welcome, David. Amity, this is David.
Hi, David.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Lovely to be here.
Well, so David, I'll catch you up as well. Maybe a summary too.
Oh.
I think, David, I think your microphone may be catching all of us there.
Not sure. Is that better or worse?
Let me talk for just a second and see if I hear an echo, and I don't hear an echo. So yes, that would be better.
All right.
Awesome. We got all of our tech. Let's see, speaking of tech, we're troubleshooting right now, aren't we, on the call? So we're just trying to show off for Amity that we're not total rubes when it comes to our tech, with all this tech talk. Yeah. So Amity was just telling us about how, the use of tools and digital formats and platforms and things is not only something that's useful, but I like how you mentioned that we have really the obligation to provide the best care we can. So when there are tools that are available, and many of which now are designed to help with service delivery, it behooves us to find ways to make ourselves available to our clients that way.
Yes.
I'm getting, yeah. Interesting. And looping Clare and David into this too. What kind of changes have you guys seen over time, both maybe tech or even societally, in the way that the addiction treatment is put out there?
I think for the addiction treatment itself, we're still hands-on, because what we do is medical, is it really needs to be in the presence of the patient. I think there is a tremendous amount of Zoom nowadays, and I'll let David talk about that, especially of our patients, because we do treat patients from all over the world. So technology has made, the patient's approach to aftercare a bit easier, because it means there's more, paths to be able to see the patient, to hear the patient, and to feel, present at that moment. As much as, again, I still believe in, one-on-one, in person. Not everybody's able to do that, especially all the time. So I think it did open, the opportunity for people to, get the help they need without, missing on responsibilities or other things that in their lives.
That's one thing that I know we focus a lot on, through Waismann, is looking for ways that people can receive treatment without having to risk having to quit their job or something like that many times. And Amity, this probably ties in. You work with a lot of high achievers and people who probably have a lot going on in their lives. And I think there is the reason I'm going to use the word mythology is any one size fits all approach, I think is a mythology, so to speak. It's everybody's got to go to the full blown 90 days this or 120 days this or something that and sometimes people either they can't really, or we could just be honest, say they're not gonna. So how do we adapt to help people who are in those situations? And that's one thing we seek to do a lot.
Yes. Well, I think, and I'd love to hear, from all of you on your perception of this, but I think in the last, alongside and in parallel to this exponential technology and growth and explosion of research within the mental health care industry, we're seeing pockets of how there is this huge paradigm shift from dis-ease to this seeking wellness and a holistic embrace of wellness. And what does that mean? And alongside of that, we're also seeing a transition from, if you will, a quantified self perspective to a fully integrated approach of how we look at our well-being. And so moving from a quantified self to a quantified health worldview. And in regards to working with my particular clients, there's all these other issues that sort of come up. Each individual's journey is unique and their own. And so again, in our basic fundamental training, it's you meet your client where they're at. And so you have to be able to be flexible, adaptive, and consumer client specific to their needs. And I think that really applies to the whole recovery process and journey that individuals go on. So
Right. Just that as I've said before, and I'll say, I'm sure many times again, that it's the client's needs that drive the treatment. And so if you're working with someone who's thirsty, you better get him something to drink, or is hungry, you better get him a meal. If you're working with someone who is lonely, work with them and figure out how they can get better connected. And there's different ways to do it. If they're very busy, they have a full life, maybe that aspect of their life is helpful. Technology can help too. They don't have to drive an hour, each way to go see their therapist. And all of a sudden that relieves the burden, and yet they can still get some help that they need. And like our treatment program is, we're really set up that way so that, you can get in and out quickly, right? So in terms of the technology that's used in treatment, in terms of being able to get someone off an opioid very quickly, I think that we do that better than anybody I know, and with more precautions than anyone I know. So then there's more options. If you need to stay longer, you can stay longer. Right. But it's driven by the person's life. It's driven by their needs. Now, obviously in treatment, people are suffering because they don't always recognize what they need, or there's a lot of resistance to it, or there's problems with being able to activate in some way that allows those needs to be put in place. And, and in a treatment, at least in terms of my job, I think it's my job to be able to convince them using their life and their own story as to what it is that's out of balance. And if you do so effectively, people will feel grateful.
And it's a kind of unfortunate in a way, but fortunate that it's happening, in that if you look at the old medical model and still some of the tendencies in addiction treatment, treating someone as that individual and listening to them is something that's a bit modern too, we might say, and really incorporating and blending the psychological health model. A lot of us have been doing it for a long time, but I just mean that there is still a kind of one size fits all mentality. So even having, along with the focus on individuality, now we're talking about how that can be delivered, and there's options for people to have more intensive outpatient if they need it, to do a little more or a little less, to have, I don't know, just different follow-ups. One thing that's really interesting is we mentioned the virtual telehealth options of delivery through services, through kind of like what we're doing right now, right? That sometimes there's this question of, is it more advantageous to be in person? Is it not? Once again, individuality and what people like. But Amity, could you maybe tell us a little bit about some of the developments that are coming down the pike there? I know with VR and things, they're looking to supplement that, right?
Yeah, of course. So as we can see, I mean, we're 4 years out from the pandemic, and telehealth and virtual accessibility is sort of second nature to us now. But the beauty of this is that it can go so much farther. We can have so much more of a hybrid approach. Not only can we be up close and screen to screen with our clients, and we sort of have a familiarity with it, we're comfortable with it. It's a format that's not foreign to us anymore. But we can also utilize that to have constant contact with our clients in a way that is proactive and directive instead of being reactive. So a lot of things that, at least that I found just within the screen, the video usage, is that, I can follow up with a client. I can have a regular schedule, and then I can do follow up, and I can provide access to other coaching and homework tools and portals that keeps the movement of therapy, keeps the movement of treatment in flow. And then if whatever I see in addition that's needed, it's in real time, because I'm having these ongoing conversations with my clients, and then I can figure out what other tools I can utilize to help support their journey. And a lot of times I'll suggest, well, let me give you a intervention, and I'll say, let's get online and let's do a VR routine or process or steps. And then I can follow up, and I can get all this real-time feedback and what's going on. So it's really powerful in how you can incorporate these tools, and they're relatively affordable.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, as things come down the pike and become more widely there. I'm curious about the way that you see addiction treatment, touching some of the people that you work with, and what is it that meets some people's needs? As we were saying a minute ago, we work with a lot of people who, they might have their lives feeling out of control in a way, but they're still the experts of their own lives, and they may be highly effective and healthy in many ways, but they have these issues. How do you see them approach, and how do you recommend that they engage in starting out treatment when it comes to their addictions?
Well, my specialty is not addiction. First and foremost, my area of focus is really looking at the person's journey and realizing that we all have hiccups. We all have these life fissures that happen, and moments of crisis and change. It's an opportunity for growth and discovery. And what I love to do is, when that moment arises and somebody's looking for assistance and guidance, I act as an ally, a resource, a witness to their process. And I do that through a particular program that I offer called Lifebook. And this is a way of essentially of looking across your life of over 12 domains, from your health and fitness through your character development, your spiritual orientation, to all of these other factors, because we're not just 4 or 5 representations. We have a full mosaic of our life experience. And by being able to look at these areas with distance and observation, we can come to determine like what our values and what our strengths are. And then we're able to sort of write our own new narrative in this process. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when going through this life book journey with me, you come away with a life manifesto.
Helping people to clarify and to find, maybe even isolate some of those self-defeating kind of beliefs. That's part of it, right?
Yes. Being able to identify what your vision is, what your strengths are, what your purpose is. You know, it's when you figure out what your first principles are in your life by defining your personal philosophy, things become much clearer to you because you're setting a course in a direction that isn't dictated by the addiction, by what other people are saying. You get really clear on who you are and what you stand for, and it just sets your course forward.
Okay.
I think, Dwight, it's important to, remind people that, again, addiction is such a small part of the individual. It is a condition that they're suffering from. It is not who they are. It doesn't have to be, what their lives will turn into. So everything that Amity's talking about is all the individuals we see. They need the same, resources, the same path, the same support as everybody else. And again, addiction is something that happens. And usually, again, as we spoke so many times, it happened because of something that was not treated or something that was not solved. So it's a consequence more than a condition. So all those things that people can do to be healthier emotionally is what all individuals need, period, regardless of where they are in life, especially in the world today where, people are feeling such anxiety, such, the future is so questionable. I think working on your strengths, it's primary to anything.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So just to add to that, the hardest question I've ever asked people is, what do you want? And because the brain and whether we're conscious of it or not, we always want something. So addiction tends to be a compensatory problem for answering that. And sometimes there is trauma, and trauma tends to be, in one way or another, a disruption in the hierarchy of a person's life and in the ability to redefine and understand what it is, like you're saying, who they are, which is actually a discovery process. You actually don't choose who you are as much as you discover it. And the ability to discover who you are and then have that in relationship to a world in which there's a feeling that who you are will in some way be supported and even rewarded eventually. And, and that hierarchy of living and of life gets reestablished in some dimension in which you understand, okay, this is what I want. I'm willing to work for it. I'm willing to suffer existentially for it. I'm willing to balance my life through exercise and all these things to sustain that. Right. And then all these tools like you're talking about, Amity, come in and you can begin to sort of put together, and also you reverse the trauma by reestablishing a sense of who you are and a hierarchy meaning moving towards something that you want, right? So that all sounds good.
Yeah, beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. I think, how do you feel about this? I mean, I really feel like life's journey is either, you're propelled forward either from a call or a fall, and something that sort of that allows you to put you on that path of self-discovery. Are you answering that call or fall or crisis point, and then it's this unfolding, this beautiful unfolding of your life if you're willing to step on that path.
Right. Well, a thought is not the same as a thought spoken. So it isn't until we begin to speak that we actually begin to coalesce a sense of ourself. And a lot of what happens in trauma is people stop speaking because there's no one to hear. There's nobody who's going to hear it well. And so that feeling of an individual's and who they are beginning to emerge is interrupted. And that's part of sort of that process that so one of the things that's great about therapy is just sitting down and talking. And you can see, because one, it creates more self-consciousness, just as, talking does, especially if you're talking about painful things, personal things, and on and on. But the ability to bear the self-consciousness actually strengthens us, assuming that it's done in a way that we want, right? That reestablishes a sense of a hierarchy. So there's all these things that therapeutically, can, help this process. So just a few thoughts.
Yeah. And of course, that then gets into some of the, let's say, the midterm or later stages of treatment. You engage with treatment. Maybe you start accepting and looking for some help with an addiction process. If we go through a lot of course, our clients go through Waismann, go through detoxification, and we go through DOMA, so they get started out with that. And Amity, you see people at all stages of different problems they're going through. When we get into saying, I'm moving into this health and happiness stage, and there's a certain amount of trying to maintain success. And we talk about relapse prevention and things like that, trying not to backslide or trying to deal with this moving forward. I'm interested in some thoughts from everybody about how do we keep that momentum, or how do we deal with the fluctuation in momentum as we're moving forward with these goals so we don't lose our progress. Yeah, go for it. We usually do rock, paper, scissors.
So dealing with what life throws at you, I think is the challenge. We're always going to, nothing's smooth sailing, right? So there's always going to be fits and stops and course corrections and adjustments along the way. And I think in my experience and from my perspective, when somebody has cleared and has come through a moment of crisis, there is a reorientation that's necessary. There is something that you need to, what your old paradigm, your old worldview has now been completely remolded and reconstructed. And you are creating a new perspective, a new paradigm to live in. And so those choices become much more important. And I think this is where that slippery slope can happen. I mean, it's so easy to go back into old habits if you haven't laid the track for the new ones yet. And so this constant adjustment and reassessment and surrounding yourself with a community of support and people who are maybe just a few steps ahead, who can relate and provide that extra support to you, emotional and psychological and community, is so needed and so vital. And I think a lot of times along the recovery journey, a lot of these people can get lost. And it is a precarious place to be. And Claire and David, you can speak more to these points, but I find that the more we surround ourselves with other people and with our peers and are patient with ourselves, we can usually, inch forward step by step, day by day, living in the moment.
Yeah, that the end of a successful treatment is creativity. Okay, now that doesn't just mean maybe some people learn how to paint. I'm sure I never will. However, but like you're saying, it's like, okay, there's going to be all these ups and downs in life, and they are. And so maybe you're lonely, but you begin to learn how to reach out. Okay, that's a creative step in a person's life. Or maybe you're struggling with work and you begin to learn how to connect with other people in areas that you haven't been able to do, and eventually your work begins to sort of you get job offers or things. So it's these creative and very practical steps that have to do with sort of a life taking hold. And again, I go back to it, but as you can define the needs and then get creative solutions to them, and then tolerate the fears, the anxieties, and begin to have some support around that and make sense of it. Like, one of the things that I think is, I'm not a big believer that the process here is towards happiness. Now, that isn't to say that I hope I have as much as I can possibly have, and I hope all of you do and everybody else does. But I think it's far better and far stronger place to stand to say that we're learning how to have an experience of being fully alive, right? So that we can be sad when we're sad and we know what to do. We can be joyful and laugh with friends when that's what we feel. And so there's this expansive sense. And by doing that, we're no longer in conflict. I'm trying to get to this place internally, or I need to be this way. And so now you can actually be, which is kind of brings in the whole spiritual part of what that is supposed to be. And now you get the psychology and the spirituality and these other things overlapping. And now you're talking about sort of a type of wholeness. And there's different ways to get to it, but it all creates a fluid, stronger human being.
It's interesting how, happiness isn't the measure of health, a level of just like always being healthy isn't a measure of mental health. I always tell people that too. It's like, right. We don't always make the healthy decision, but knowing what it is and being able to evaluate ourselves, I think sometimes we allow, as they say, the old expression, right? Perfect to become the enemy of good. If you're familiar, that's that old idea that, when we think what someone who is healthy looks like this and acts like this, actually they look and act like an individual. They're just have tools and are making those efforts and things in their life to be healthy. Yeah.
Claire?
No, I think it's all a path of growth. Even through struggles, it's also a growth. It's always, is also success. So it's being human. And I think one step backward does not erase 30 steps forward. So, you continue growing. That's all it is. That's life.
And I think that the way we respond to things, we learn, especially in addiction, to be terrified of the concept of relapse. We use it, it's the R word, so to speak. But yet, I think when you're talking about individualized treatment and care, relapse is a potential thing that can happen that we learn from and deal with. And also, I find that when you're working in real individualized care, even the concept or just the word relapse is more individually defined. What does that really mean, right? And what is a problematic something that happens? And getting into the nuance of that is very important when we do that with people.
We live in a culture that is, everything is up and out. The next thing to do, the next this, the next that. And what part of my experience has been in treating addiction is it's off, especially when people come in for treatment. Okay. That addiction itself is a continuation of this need for up and out, get something, do something, right? And what is missing is this need to be able to go down and in. So when they go to treatment, all of a sudden, the floor is removed for a while. Everything they pull and everything is pulled down and in. And by the way, that is what not always, okay, because this is complicated, so I don't want to overspeak, but it's part of what the healthy function of depression is, right? So that the depression is supposed to also be, like any symptom, a balancing act, right? Where it inhibits our desire to go out, up and out, and it pulls us in so that we can begin to re-examine areas that are out of balance. And so you'll see people go through that after a detox. They will go through a period of dysphoria, and they're pulled down and in through the process itself. Now, some of it's chemical, some of it is, just the physiology of the detox itself. But there's another element to it which is what brings them there. They're no longer seeking only a life up and out. Now, that has to get, like you're talking about, that has to get continually reflected upon, because these habits of mind and these habits of living don't just give way easily.
I often think of, the concept of dark night of the soul, and just being the depression or the symptomology of that informs you about what's happening. It grounds you. You need you need to, if you have this experience of hubris, of flying out of your body, which addictions and substance use can take you there, and then you're suddenly grounded in this experience of feeling your body. It is a very it's a shock to the system, and you have to go through it. You have to go in to go through, and that process takes as long as it takes. But relearning and being able to rewire your system so that you can cross through into something new is a powerful experience. And it proves to yourself, you can prove to yourself that you can do hard things, that you can come through with trials and with tribulations, and you can come out on the other side. I mean, that is the gift. That is the gift of life. I see it that way. But
wonderful.
Yeah.
Very well said. So this is something that those of you out there that are able to hear this or watch this, I think that, as I always like to say, you've got people in your life who need this. If you wonder if mental health or addiction needs are present in your life, they are. If you're lucky enough to not be aware of them at all in yourself, well, maybe lucky, maybe check. But if not you, then look around you. There's somebody who can use that. And I'm really grateful for the things we've been able to share and talk about today. Amity, would you tell everybody a little bit how they can follow you and follow your work? Where do they find you out there in the world? Sure. Not geographically, just,
Yeah. So first and foremost, you can find me at amitycooper.com. And that provides sort of an overview of all of the different services and programs that I offer. If you are interested in speaking more with me or learning more about my specific counseling and coaching programs, you can find me at wayfindingpractice.com. And then last but not least, if you are a mental health professional seeking information and guidance on how to open and jumpstart your practice, you can find me at clinicalcareercollective.com. I know that is a mouthful, but I offer a 7-day boot camp to help jumpstart your private practice. So you can find me there.
Excellent thing. And it's good to be up on top of those things for sure as we do move forward, as we've talked about today, and find ways to utilize and meet people's needs in the world that we actually live in now, which is important for all that it has and offers. As far as the show here, you can learn more about the Waismann Method, and you can learn more about our show by visiting opiates.com. We do want to hear from you. We thrive on questions and answers here. And so send us things that you'd like us to talk about. We're very grateful for those that have been reaching out, not just with questions, but also with some of the suggestions and getting us connected with some of our wonderful guests. So email us at info@opiates.com in order to do that. This show is a production of Waismann Method Opioid Treatment Specialists, Rapid Detox. Our music is the song Medical by Clean Mind Sounds. And for Clare Waismann, David Livingston, I just want to say thank you for everybody that's out there listening. Make sure to rate and review our program. One of the great things you can do to help others is to share this and other information about addiction and mental health recovery with those around you. And just want to remind you one more time to keep asking questions, because when you ask questions, you can find answers. And whenever you find answers, you can find hope. Thanks again, everybody, for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amity.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys. Bye.